And we obviously have the ability to. We have editing software and stuff like that.
I figured.
So.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about it. I mean, it's all for fun and.
Right. So I don't know, Dad. Do you want to? We can just kind of get into some questions and stuff. I mean, I was going to ask you a little bit just in starting if you've been, because you told me you were watching the tournament.
Yeah, we watched the last couple of days, and I mean, you can see the parity in college basketball.
Yeah.
And what the transfer rules and stuff have really had an effect on NCAA basketball. I mean, look at was it Fairleigh Dickinson yesterday?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Their coach was D2, and one of their better players was D2, and they followed each other to Fairleigh Dickinson. And I mean, but that just shows you what matchups can be. I mean, you got one of the smallest teams in the tournament versus one of the biggest teams in the tournament, and they just couldn't match up.
Yeah, they just seemed like, Purdue kept, in my opinion, they kept trying to, contest out top. And they would just kind of run around them and score and cut and all these different things. And Purdue just seemed like they were a little bit too slow. I mean,
you got a 7'4", 300-pounder trying to guard a 6'7", basically three-man, is playing the five.
Yeah.
And he can shoot. And so that pulled your big man out of the center. And then offensively, they just double and triple teamed every time they got inside, and they couldn't make open shots.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't make open shots, it's going to be tough to win.
Yeah, you're right. Did you watch all of that game, basically?
We watched bits and pieces of it.
Okay.
We watched that one. We watched, we were at a couple different places up in Mount Horeb. And so we had all the state games going when we were watching the Hero boys play.
Oh, yeah.
And Pewaukee play with the guy that had been offered. One's going to Iowa State, I believe, and the other one's was offered by Wisconsin.
Okay.
And then the guy that Wisconsin's high on right now, the Hannah from Nicolet. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're some pretty good players especially being sophomores and juniors. So
yeah, that's pretty. It's a great. The most wonderful time of the year, I think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the first weekend NCAA basketball, the tournament, is the best weekend.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You were telling me that you were going to stop production on your work for a while, right?
Yeah, I had a meeting on Thursday morning for the farm stuff, and then I had to run down to Iowa yesterday morning to sign some loan paperwork. But outside of that, we just kind of hung out with some friends and watched a lot of basketball the last 2 afternoons.
Yeah. So Sammy's schedule didn't change too much, but Sam
was watching games with his team, his friends in Middleton there. So
yeah, okay.
I don't know what he was doing yesterday. When I got back from Iowa, he was at the farm, but I don't know how long that lasted.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Do you do a bracket?
I didn't do a bracket.
Do you ever?
I've done bracket almost every year except for the last 2 years, and now I never get it done before the first 4 ever plays, and by that point it's just like whatever.
Right. I mean, I'm a little bit that way too, where I kind of just like to sit and watch the games. If I put the time in to do a bracket. First of all, I don't watch enough college basketball during the year to know. And even sometimes I think when you do pay close attention, it almost is worse because in a one-game scenario, anything can happen. So, and like you said, matchups are really important.
Oh, it is.
Because Purdue, if they get past that game, who knows? They could go to the Final Four or whatever. So, but
in my opinion, the first game of the tournament is always the toughest.
Yeah.
I mean, they have the most time to prepare. I mean, you're Sunday to Thursday or Sunday to Friday. And then, but you'll prepare for both teams for the second matchup if you get by the first, but you aren't running a whole bunch of plays. You aren't scouting them as much as you are like practicing against their offense for the one day you have in between games. So, I mean, usually that first game you get by that, and then usually the better teams win after that, or whoever's hotter making shots.
Right. Yeah, it does seem like after that early upset, a lot of times those teams, not all the time, a lot of times those teams get beat pretty handily the next game.
Right.
So, thanks for joining us. Obviously, you can see we've been talking with Mike Wilkinson, former Wisconsin Heights grad and former UW grad. Also played, how many seasons did you play overseas?
9.
9 seasons overseas. So just kind of thought we would start by just asking you a little bit about, so we had that video that we were watching. I know that you were part of that out at the Cole Center. where I think it was just recently, a month ago or so, you were honored at the Badger game there.
Yeah, the honorary captain.
Yeah, yeah. Can you just tell us what that game was like? Did you have like a box seat, or where were you sitting for that game?
It was the Michigan game, and it was great seeing everyone and catching up with everyone. I mean, I played with 2 or 3 of the guys in the coaching staff, and Coach Gard was my assistant, and then Dean Oliver was, when I took my official visit to Iowa, he was my player host in Iowa. So, I mean, I've known the whole staff, gosh, I couldn't even, since I was playing, even before that in high school. And then some of the guys, I got to know some of the young guys when we did the celebrity softball game this summer. So it was good seeing some of those guys again. But it was great to be back at the Kohl Center and just kind of like be in the atmosphere. And
Yeah.
I mean, they've got a bunch of talent on the team, and it's not very often you get to watch a basketball game where the winning team doesn't make a basket for the last 10 and a half minutes of the game.
I was gonna say that was wild. Yeah, they didn't make a field goal in the last, like you said, 10 minutes. They barely hung on to win, but but hey, they needed you that game. I texted you that Johnny Davis was the honorary captain the next time, I think, and they lost. So they got to have you as honorary captain more often. And so you said that for a while, I know that you would go out and you would practice with the Badgers, right? When's the last time you've done that?
That was when Hap was there before COVID, so like 2018 or 2019.
Oh, okay.
So it's been a while. And then once COVID took over, everything kind of shut down, so I didn't really play much basketball for a couple of years, and then really kind of started playing again in December of this last year. Just pick up games here and there, so I'm still pretty out of shape. But no, it's different. I mean, when I was my last year overseas, I practiced with them 2 or 3 times a week while I was rehabbing my shoulder to go back overseas and waiting for a contract. And that was the year they went to the championship game with Frank and everyone. And then there would just be spot stuff here and there if they needed someone for a certain scout or something like that, or when Ethan was there. But every time I went in practice, every time I got into practice, Ethan went and sat out. So, I mean, it's a different game now compared to what it was. My physicalness is very different than what the physical level is now.
Okay. And when you were playing, what other former Badgers would also practice? I would assume they would invite a few others, right? I mean, Joe Kravinoff probably played.
Joe would practice a little bit. Charlie came in once or twice.
Charlie Wills.
Sometimes I don't know. They'd have Sam, if Sam was around, or any guys that were in town. Bronson, I think, was back for one.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, it kind of fit around their playing their schedule for overseas and stuff like that, or wherever they were playing.
Did you ever have some practices where the scout team was giving it to the young guys?
The scout team was always tough to beat. I mean, we always took the best players from the ones that weren't on the starting five, and I mean, just the experience it makes it's a game changer when it comes to a lot of that stuff. And I mean, I know it. Having me around definitely made a difference for the championship team. Just in they told me it was after playing against me in practice all week, it was easy when they got to the games on the weekends. I mean, they knew what was going on, and everything was just they could react and play.
Yeah, yeah.
Who reffed those games?
Auto
the scout team. The scout team.
Yeah, okay. we didn't get a lot of calls.
You probably didn't need a lot though, right?
Well, some of the guys weren't very happy with me because my game is always make contact first and then play after that.
Yeah.
And they're always kind of just waiting for contact. So a lot of times the people ended up under the basket, or people were sore by the time we were done practicing. But it was more of a half-court game when I was in there. The up and down, it got to be a little much for me because I wasn't in the shape they were in.
Yeah, yeah. Were there ever any guys that you played when you practiced, like a Bronson or anybody that you kind of say that would have been a fun guy to play with when I was during my career?
I mean, there's always guys like that. I mean, everyone brought something a little different, and I mean, there were a lot of good players that Wisconsin had, and I was very fortunate to play with a bunch of good players, and even some of the guys, like I got to play with Tucker overseas. But it's a different game and different levels when you start to like meshing with people. Like Kirk Penny and I always had a great relationship on the playing off the ball, that type of stuff, or Devin and I with our pick and roll, and so it's hard to develop those kind of relationships when you're practicing once here or once there, and different guys. We started to get some stuff when I was practicing 2 or 3 days a week with some of the scout team guys that it just made things different, and no one wanted to ever no one on the regular team wanted to go through any of my screens, so the people were always open.
Joe and I were watching some of that, and there were a few screens that looked bone jarring. Let's just say
You'd
that.
have to go to the monitor now.
Yeah, right.
Well, there were, when I was overseas, there were a couple times guys I set screens on a half court. They had to take them, call the ambulance to take them to the hospital afterwards. No one would call a screen, and the gym would be so loud, and it would just be, that'd be the end of it.
Yeah. So I guess taking a quick little pivot here, just wanted to talk a little bit about just a few questions about growing up. Dad and I were talking a little bit about whose farm is that you grew up on? Who's the home farm? Whose is that?
That my grandpa bought it in 1947, and my dad bought it from my grandpa when I was 3 or 4, I think is when that transition happened.
Okay.
And then I bought back in 2010.
Okay.
So I own half, my parents own half.
Okay, got it. Of the home farm
Of
there.
the home farm now.
Do you remember who owned it before that? Who did your grandpa buy it from? Do you have any
I
idea?
don't know. I know the farm next door was a Leach Hour farm.
Okay.
Before he bought the one next door, and that's where when my dad bought the home farm, that's where he moved after that.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the lineage was before that. I know my great uncle and everything was over off of Night Hollow Road, and then they had some land up on Cowley that they
And that's
started
Del Bryant? Is that your great uncle?
My great uncle is Del Bryant, yes,
Right, okay.
and they're over on Night Hollow too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. But are you related to the Turnells somehow?
The Turnells were on the corner, and they were something about them owning land in that area before, and the Searses have been there for a really long time.
Right.
There hasn't been a whole lot of turnover in areas in certain spots out there, but I know we've been there forever. Sweeney's, I think the Sweeney farm up the road was 1948, so they're almost 150 years on the farm. Helmenstein's over there, are over a century farm. When we bought the Harrop property, they had the original deed from like the 1860s and 1870s, and every transaction from there on that Harrop farm. So when we bought the farm, we gave them back all that history, and there's no reason for us to keep all that stuff. I mean, that's their family and farm history. So
Who did you give it to? Did you give it to Bernie or?
We gave it back to the Bernie and Dick for that trust, and I don't know what they decided to do with it over there, but yeah, I mean that's their family history, and I know they're a little sad to see it not in their family anymore, but they're happy that we ended up with it, and they're sure we're going to take good care of it.
Yeah, I mean that's, I guess if you have to sell the home farm or the land, you'd like to at least sell it to somebody that is going to be using it for that purpose.
How many acres do you have on your farm, on the Harrop farm where you bought?
So there's the home farm, which is 240 acres, and then we bought 115 from the Harrop farm, and then the farm that my grandpa had bought that left to my aunts and uncles. There's 6 of us that own that now. So me, my dad, and a couple of my aunts and uncles, and between the 3 places, there's almost 450 acres out there now.
Yes, wow.
Yep.
Wow. And how much is tillable?
Just shy of 200, I believe.
Okay. Nice. It's a big spread out there you guys got.
Oh yeah, it's unique because we got the creek that runs through some of it, and then you got the hillsides and stuff. And I mean, we're basically right up against. We're just the Iowa County side of Dane County, so the back of our property is basically the line.
Okay, it is. Huh.
So you said you were like maybe 3 when your dad bought the farm there.
Yep.
And it was a dairy farm, is that correct?
Yep. We milked cows until 2000. And my grandpa milked cows when he moved to the other farm. So we had 2 herds going there. And so I was helping milk both places. And then I'd also help up at the Sweeney farm, milk up there on mornings. So I'd start up there at like 5:30, and then come down and we'd do that, the home farm and the farm next door. And so I think there was somewhere around 100, 150 cows we were milking it. I was helping milk at some point.
Wow. And we were talking a little bit about this, wondering, did you always like farming? Because I know, growing up, doing certain things, your parents drag you to do certain things, and you go, I don't really like this. But then you gain an appreciation for it or like it later on. Did you always enjoy kind of farming and growing up?
I mean, there's always days that you don't enjoy the farming aspect of it. And but I mean, the way we grew up and everything being around the family, and we were always playing games for chores, and we didn't really win very many games for chores when we were younger. And then once we started winning games for chores, then my dad quit playing because he didn't want to do the chores.
Smart
So
dad.
was it one-on-one? Is that what the idea? Or?
We played ping pong, we play pool, we throw darts. I mean, we play horse. One-on-one stopped when I was 15. We stopped playing one-on-one because my dad caught his shoulder to the chin, and that was the end of that. But in the barn, nothing was ever level, so you couldn't really dribble the ball, and there was hay chaff everywhere. So it was more just shooting, and so we'd play horse, and we'd shoot off the beams, and you'd bank it off the beam to the basket, or off the wall into the basket, or over this beam and through this triangle. And I mean, so you figure different things out, how to shoot. And then once he couldn't beat us right-handed, then he'd start shooting left-handed around the basket, hoping we'd miss.
Yeah. So your dad made up the game to
Make
whether
sure
it was chores or not.
Yep.
And then when he started losing, that sounds very familiar to games I remember playing. Just as soon as he started losing at the games, then it was
It just wasn't as high as stakes, I don't think.
Exactly.
The
Exactly. Well, we played all sorts of stuff. It wasn't just basketball. I mean, we had a ping pong table, and we had a pool table, and we had a dartboard. And I mean, you can still see where the dartboard was because it was steel tip darts at that time. Yeah. So it was a wood door, and all the holes are still in the door frame and the door from where we played steel tip darts. And
Well, and then do you still play darts every once in a while, or Sammy's into it? I know he's into it.
Sam plays every week in the league, and I used to throw in the league, but that kind of went to the wayside with COVID, and now was with the little kid in the family. And I mean, I think this last couple of days was the first time I've thrown darts in a few months. But I mean, I enjoy it, and I mean, I just enjoy being competitive with different stuff. So.
Yeah. So you talk about a little bit of the different activities and stuff going around the house growing up. Any other hobbies that you were into? Did you get into hunting and fishing and that kind of stuff as well growing up?
We'd fish a little bit. We had the bamboo poles with the fishing line on that you'd have to roll up the pole or unroll the pole, and we just walked down to the creek. Every once in a while, we'd catch a sucker or a little trout, but we never really caught a whole lot. And,
not much there, probably.
But we always spent a lot of time outside. I mean, we had plenty of property to play on, and we'd go up in the hill and make little forts or stuff like that. Or we had the front of the cow pasture was all like old sand rocks. So as the cows would break them down, we'd just take the equipment, the little toy trucks and stuff up there and play in the sand and that type of stuff. But
and was there anybody in your family, not to out anybody, but was there anybody from the 5 of you kids that really wasn't much into farming or didn't like it or didn't like the chores?
Well, I mean, as you got younger, you always got stuck with the worst chores.
Yeah.
So, I mean, none of them really enjoyed doing a lot of the chores, and there were plenty of fights over people not doing chores because you couldn't get your stuff done until other people got their stuff done. But I mean, it's just sibling stuff.
Yeah. I didn't know if there was any one person that really didn't.
The 2 youngest didn't have to do very much. I mean, by 2000, we got rid of the cows in 2000, and they were just getting to the age where they could start helping out. So
perfect timing.
Pretty much. Yep, exactly.
Was that a graduation gift by getting rid of the cows? Or?
Well, there were still cow. We still had beef after we got rid of the dairy cows because my dad couldn't have any animals on the farm. So we had some Hereford beef to just keep the pastures and keep the cows there for him something to do. But they were traveling. They came to watch a lot of games while I was playing at college. So and they both worked off the farm even when we were still running the farm. They were my parents worked off the farm.
Now that you're handling, I mean, is it you and your dad that are basically farming? Or is it mainly you at the farm now?
I do most of the management stuff, and then he'll help feed the cows and he'll help run some of the equipment. So, I mean, we still do a lot, but when it comes to the management, I'm doing probably 90% of it. And then we're still pretty 50-50 on hay season and stuff like that, or putting crops in. It all depends on if it's a one-person job or a two-person job. If it's two people, then he'll help. If it's just one, I'll do it if I'm around, or he'll do it if I'm not.
Would you have liked to dairy farm at all? Or are you glad that part's gone?
No, I don't miss being tied to the barn twice a day, every single day of the week. And the barn we had was not made for someone my size, and milking cows and bending over. And if it was a parlor, that might be something different, but still, just the time restrictions on the requirements for all the milking and stuff like that. I like the cattle. I like the farming. I like that stuff. I just don't need to have the mandatory 2 hours that I have to be there every single day.
Yeah.
What are the kind of cattle you have now? They're the hairy.
Yep, we have Scottish Highlands.
Scottish Highlands.
Yep, they've got the long hair, long horns. They do real well up in the woods, so we put them up in the woods. They eat the leaves off the trees. They eat all the brush.
They
They eat basically everything that goats would pretty much eat, and that's what they're known for.
But they're not milk cows.
No, they're beef.
Can you milk?
You can if you wanted to. You wouldn't get very much milk. It wouldn't really be worth it.
Okay.
But they're more of a beef breed, and the meat, because they have the long hair, they don't need the fat to stay warm. They use their hair to stay warm, so the meat's a lot leaner, and they grow a little bit slower. So it's got more of a cross between a wild game and a beef. So it's more of that gamey, earthy flavor.
How did you get in touch with them? How did you learn about them and want to purchase those?
So when I bought back in, we were looking for ways to kind of minimize our tax requirements on the farm, and so one of the ways was to turn the woods into farmland. So by putting the cattle in the woods, it makes it all ag land. The taxes are a lot lower instead of recreation land. And so the cattle, I save more in taxes by putting the cattle in the woods than the cattle actually make me.
Wow.
Really?
So,
wow. Huh. How many head do you have?
We're down to 39 now.
And do you have to keep a certain amount?
Nope.
You don't. So you could have 10 of them. And
they just have to be in the woods or in that pasture for a certain amount of time in the course of a year for it to be considered ag land.
You got the IRS coming out with a stopwatch. Don't give them any ideas.
Well, I've got a bunch of work to do because I want to put them in more of the woods and do stuff. But I got to put fence up, and we don't have any water at one end of the woods, so I got to dig a pond at some point, which I want to do, and put some water tanks in. And then once we get water up there, then another 80 acres will be put in pasture for the cows.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they go through, and once we got rid of the cows, all the brush started growing up. Yeah. And now having the cows back in, you can actually walk through it and actually see it again. And so I enjoy it that way much better than just full of brush and junk and all the other stuff.
Yeah, don't have to clear it either. That's awfully nice.
Exactly.
So obviously, you played basketball growing up. Were there any other sports that you were into? Soccer, football?
I mean, we'd go to gym or open recess, and all we played was football. Okay. And I mean, I always thought it would be fun to play, but I just never had the time with the basketball and stuff like that and doing the farm work. And it got to the point with basketball, like between my junior and senior year, I was playing over 100 games of basketball in a year. Okay. And still doing farm work. So you get up to do farm work on a weekend, go play basketball tournament, come home and do farm work. So, not
much room for the rest of it.
Okay. Is there concern about being hurt too at all? Like you think I'm moving in a direction here, basketball wise, on a bigger level. did you get concerned about playing football?
Not
it was
really.
just more of a time thing.
More of a time thing. They really wanted me to do track and throw discus and that type of stuff. But again, it was just time stuff at that point. I mean, I was the oldest on the farm, so I had always stuff to do. I mean, I was driving a tractor from the time I was 7. And so feeding cows and doing that, and with both my parents working off the farm, I was doing a lot of the farm management even when I was still in high school, because my dad was only at the farm till like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then he'd work from 1 to 10 o'clock every night at the shoebox.
Yeah.
And so then we'd be responsible for all the afternoon chores and that type of stuff. Or you'd go to practice after school, and then you didn't have any way to get home, so you'd wait for my mom to come home from the doctor's office in Madison to pick you up, take you home, and then you'd have to do chores and homework and all this other stuff. So
I'm always kind of intrigued by people that do something at a high level, whether it's artistic or business. When did you talked about your junior to senior year, you played 100 games. When did you start to, like in your mind, when did you start to say, I think I'm pretty good at basketball. I think I can do this at the next level. You know what I mean? The
when
college
I was playing with you guys at Open Gym. I mean, that's Steve Tracy come down. We play with you and Darwin and stuff. And I mean, Open Gym is really where you started to figure out either you're going to make it or you're not. And just being able to play with you guys on that schedule and playing against guys that were better or stronger, that type of stuff, it made playing against high school kids easy. Yeah. And it was that 7th, 8th grade, those years where I was playing against you guys, that then I got to playing with the varsity that summer after 8th grade. And I was the leading scorer in the varsity in some of those tournaments as an 8th grader. And well, of course we didn't have all the varsity guys there because it's summertime, but then I went and broke my leg that summer after that. But that was really where you could see the difference being made, and that and helping growing 5 inches in the summer.
That helps, yeah.
Yeah, so.
I was always impressed and intrigued with you because, like, especially between your junior and senior year, Open Gym in summer sometimes can be a little bit of a goof-off. And Darwin and I, at goof-off time, Darwin and I wanted it to be more competitive because we liked to play too.
Right.
And you were always working on drills and shooting, even, you were working on your game. And having the best player, I always said this as a coach, having the best player have the best attitude, have the best work ethic is like, then it's easy peasy. I mean, it's just so much easier to keep the other sheep in line. When you got some of the better players goofing off all the time, it's hard to keep everything. So I was always very appreciative and impressed by that.
Well, I mean, I didn't have a whole lot of time to goof off. I mean, this was basically the time I had to do anything in my time away from the farm. Yeah. I mean, if we were outside of basketball, when I was in high school, you get away from the farm 2 or 3 times a year. I mean, holidays with the family, Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, those are your 3 times, maybe a summer picnic. And then maybe once or twice for a birthday party, but that was it. Always the rest of the time you're on the farm working and that type of stuff. And so basketball was a chance to get away and not have to worry about that a little bit. And I mean, my dad always still played league up in Dodgeville, so we'd go with him when we were younger to that. And I always wanted to play in that. But he wasn't allowed until you were out of high school. So But no, it was really playing against you guys, and Steve Tracy coming down when he was in college up at La Crosse made a big difference. Having that type of quality in some of those open gyms, it made playing against high school kids easy.
It was fun when I think a couple of times somebody from the Badger coaching staff came and watched.
I don't know if I remember that. But then again, I didn't pay a lot of attention to anyone that was really around.
Darwin and I noticed it a couple of times. Maybe was there a Jeter that came one time? We always imagined that they were coming to spot us because we still had some eligibility left. And actually, they kept looking at you, and we couldn't figure that out. But we figured it out in the end.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of my teammates that first year, because when I got to Madison, it was Dick Bennett, and we still had a bunch of upperclassmen. I think there were five or six seniors on that team, and they always tell me that they were very unhappy that I decided to redshirt, because they said that I probably could have made a really big difference in their senior year.
Wondered about that, yeah.
Because that was the year that they had come back from the Final Four.
They were just in the Final Four.
And those guys came back, right?
Yep, they brought everyone back except for John Bryant. And then Dick Bennett decided to retire halfway through the year, and then we ended up losing to, Georgia State in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And they just didn't guard our big guys, and our big guys couldn't make shots. And, I mean, all I did all year was play in the practice squad, so everyone got to see me. I got to practice against the top guys all year, and there were moments where I did well, and there were moments where I didn't, but that was just, of course, of being a freshman and trying to find your strength. But going into college at 200 pounds and coming out after freshman year at 230.
Wow.
I mean, it made a big difference.
Yeah.
You were going to ask about that, about nutrition and things like that.
Yeah,
I was curious about how that works.
Yeah, and I'll maybe ask about that in a second. I guess I was curious about, while we're kind of transitioning from maybe Heights high school, growing up to that college. What was the recruiting process like? I think Joe has said a few things that you had mentioned, going to different recruiting visits. Can you name some of the schools that were recruiting you? When was that happening? Junior, senior year?
So I got my first letter from a college after my sophomore year of high school. So that summer between sophomore and junior year. And then that summer was the first year I actually ever played AAU.
Okay.
Well, because I broke my femur after my 8th grade year. So I was cleared to play basketball the day freshman basketball started, and played freshman basketball for half the season. I'd play 15 minutes a game, and I don't think we won any game by less than 30 points.
Wow.
As a freshman. Moved up to moved up to JV at Christmas time my freshman year, and they were like 500, and we lost one game the rest of the season on JV.
Okay.
And then that summer following my freshman year, I had to have surgery on my other leg to stop it from growing from the growth plate. So then I was cleared before I missed that whole summer to play basketball, and was cleared to play before sophomore season. And then sophomore year, I started on varsity as a sophomore. And I mean, I think they said my first game was as a varsity player was like 26 points and 24 rebounds or something like that.
Okay.
But and from there, it just kind of went on.
And was it your freshman to sophomore year you grew 5 inches?
That summer between 8th grade and freshman.
Oh, okay. So what were you in 8th grade? How tall were you in 8th grade?
I was right around that 5'11",
Okay.
6 foot right in there, and I was 6'4" by the time I was a freshman.
Okay. A good problem to have.
Yeah.
I didn't ever have any of those summers. I don't know if I had any 5-year span where I grew 5 inches like that. So then you said sophomore year you were around 6'4"?
Yep. I mean, I slowly was getting taller. I was that 6'4" to, by sophomore year I was about 6'7". Grew a little bit more after that, but I'm still right around 6'8".
Okay.
Now, and I've probably shrunk some since, but
That happens.
and I never really did any. I played AAU after my sophomore year and after my junior year, and that's the only AAU we played. And I had a bunch of offers. I had a few offers and some stuff after my sophomore year, but my first letter was like Youngstown State or something like that.
Okay.
And I had like half a cabinet full by the time I was done. Nothing really major, a little bit here and there. After junior year, we played AU tournaments after junior year, and we went to some of the biggest tournaments in the country. We went down to Vegas, and it was there were all the top 50 players in the country were down there. And by the time I left that tournament, we finished 4th with 5 guys from Madison, 7 guys from Madison. 3 of them ended up going D1 for basketball, or 2 for basketball and 1 for football. But I got scholarship offers from almost every team in the country if I wanted to go, or letters anyway from every team in the country. But we narrowed it down to Utah, Iowa, Marquette, Wisconsin, and Northwestern.
Oh.
Were my final 5.
Okay. Interesting.
So I took official visits to all 5 of those schools, and wanted to have a decision made before basketball started my senior year, just so that they didn't get in the way of anything.
How did you narrow that down to those 5 teams, and why did you pick? I mean, you don't have to go into detail on all of them, but maybe was there a reason or reasons for some of those teams?
There were a few reasons. I mean, being close to home was one. Coach was another one. Just program and where programs were at, and then certain schools that had programs that I wanted. So ultimately, it came down to some of the guys and coaching staff and the program at Wisconsin that I really wanted to be into. Is why I ended up deciding that and being close to home. And
okay.
I mean, it turned out to be a great decision. And the only reason Utah was in there was because Majerus was out there. And I mean, Majerus has always been known for great development of players. And Keith Van Horn and Metala were both there. And
yeah.
So
was that some of it? I mean, did some of those coaches, did they tell you within that process, did they say, hey, I think you can make it to the next level, which is the NBA, and I think I can get you there? I mean,
that was the thing. Like when I was in high school, it was straight from high school to the NBA level.
Yeah.
And so all these guys I was playing with in AAU that summer, three or four of them all ended up going to the NBA in the draft. And I mean, those are guys I was scoring 30 points a game on while we were playing in tournaments in the summertime. So it was never a question of confidence that I was ever going to not make it to that level. It was where do I want to play more so.
Okay. And growing up, did you ever kind of imagine or think, not imagine, but did you ever kind of dream like I would like to play for the Badgers? Or did you root for was Marquette your team, or was there a team that in state that you kind of thought it'd be fun? Because I remember growing up, I always thought it'd be fun to play for the Badgers, so I didn't know if that was part of it for you.
I mean, you always grow up watching the Badgers. You always, want to play for the Badgers, want to play for the Bucks, want to play for the local teams. I mean, Bo Ryan, we play in tournaments at Platteville, and Bo Ryan was there, and I mean, they were early on. They were recruiting me to Platteville, and then Bo Ryan got hired to Milwaukee, and that after my junior year, I talked to him, and he said, if we offered you a scholarship, would you ever consider coming to Milwaukee? And I said no.
Okay.
And then he ends up at Wisconsin my first year being able to play. But there were places that I didn't want to be, and I was always all about winning, and that was the biggest thing. So I wanted to go someplace where we could win.
Yeah. Well, if we can take a short little break here, I thought maybe what we can do is then kind of talk Badger basketball and then get into some of your pro career.
Okay.
We've got a few clips here, so I don't know if you need a little bit of a break, because we can launch right back into it if you want to. But
whatever you guys want to do.
I just need just a short break if I can.
Go for it.
Go take your break.